Imagine waking up tomorrow to headlines announcing that the Strait of Hormuz has been closed. Within hours, financial markets would react, oil prices could surge, and governments around the world would begin emergency meetings. Although the Strait of Hormuz is only a narrow waterway between Iran and Oman, it carries a significant share of the world's seaborne oil and a large portion of global liquefied natural gas exports. This is why many experts consider it one of the most important maritime choke points on Earth. If shipping through the Strait of Hormuz were completely halted, the first and most immediate impact would likely be on global energy markets. Countries that depend heavily on oil imports, including China, India, Japan, and South Korea, could face supply disruptions. Oil prices might rise sharply as traders react to uncertainty, making gasoline, diesel, and aviation fuel more expensive across many countries. Higher fuel prices would affect almost every industry. Airlines would face rising operating costs, shipping companies would pay more for fuel, and manufacturers would see transportation expenses increase. As businesses pass these costs on to consumers, everyday products such as food, clothing, electronics, and household goods could become more expensive. Inflation could accelerate, putting additional pressure on families and businesses worldwide. Financial markets would also likely experience significant volatility. Investors often react quickly to geopolitical crises involving major energy supplies. Stock markets could fall, while demand for traditional safe haven assets such as gold and government bonds might increase. Central banks and governments would closely monitor the situation and consider measures to reduce the economic impact. The Middle East would face some of the biggest economic challenges. Major oil exporting countries such as Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates rely on the Strait of Hormuz to transport much of their energy exports. Although some countries have alternative pipelines, these routes cannot fully replace the massive volume of oil and gas that normally passes through the strait. Export revenues could decline, affecting government budgets and regional economies. The international response would likely be swift. Diplomatic efforts to reopen the waterway would intensify, while naval forces from multiple countries might increase their presence to help protect commercial shipping and maintain freedom of navigation. Because the global economy depends heavily on uninterrupted energy supplies, many governments would have a strong incentive to prevent a prolonged disruption. However, it is important to note that a complete and long-lasting closure of the Strait of Hormuz would be extremely difficult to sustain. The waterway is internationally significant, and many nations have strategic, economic, and security interests in keeping it open. Alternative export routes, emergency oil reserves, and coordinated international responses could help reduce some of the economic shock, although they would not eliminate it entirely. In the end, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz would not affect only the Middle East. It could influence fuel prices, global trade, inflation, financial markets, and economic stability across the world. This narrow stretch of water demonstrates how a single strategic location can have consequences that reach nearly every country on the planet. History has shown that some of the world's biggest crises begin in places most people have never visited. The Strait of Hormuz is one of those places. On a map, it appears to be nothing more than a narrow stretch of water, but in reality, it is one of the most critical arteries of the global economy. Every day that ships pass safely through this waterway, the world barely notices. Oil reaches refineries, fuel reaches gas stations, factories continue producing goods, and global trade keeps moving. But if that flow is interrupted, even for a short time, the consequences can spread across continents with surprising speed. The future of the Strait of Hormuz will depend not only on military strength, but also on diplomacy, international cooperation, and political decisions made behind closed doors. A single miscalculation could increase tensions, while successful diplomacy could prevent a crisis before it begins. For the United States and its allies, maintaining stability in this region remains a strategic priority. For energy importing nations, it is an economic necessity, and for millions of ordinary people around the world, it could determine the price they pay for fuel, food, transportation, and countless everyday essentials. As global demand for energy continues to grow and geopolitical competition intensifies, the Strait of Hormuz will remain one of the most closely watched locations on Earth. Investors, military planners, world leaders, and energy companies will continue monitoring every development, knowing that even small events in this narrow waterway can influence the global economy. In the end, the Strait of Hormuz is more than just a shipping route. It is a reminder of how deeply connected our modern world has become. A crisis in one region can quickly ripple across oceans, affecting businesses, governments, and families thousands of miles away. And perhaps that is the most important lesson of all. In today's interconnected world, a narrow passage between two nations has the power to shape the future of the global economy, and in one way or another, the lives of billions of people.